Good morning, everybody. Just letting everybody get logged on. Getting things started. Letting people in. Just hang on. I'm just getting everybody in. You guys, if you have a question, ask me while we're waiting for everybody to get logged on. That's not a problem. Letting people in, letting people in. I got a couple funny stories for you guys. Because God knows I need a funny story. Okay, my finger's not working. There we go.
Patty, this is David. How are you?
I'm short and sassy. How are you?
I can see that. Yeah, I need the phone number and the name of that mold company that you told me a while back. Was it?
Get ready to write.
Right, go ahead.
It's P as in Patty, R as in Robert, C as in company. So it's PRC Restoration Company. Okay, and just bear with me. I'm looking for the number. My phone hates me this morning. Here we go. PPP. PRC. Why do I not see it there? Because it's under Zyra. Okay. So I have a number of 562 607
Yes.
7045.
Okay.
And hold on, I'm going to give you another number. But it's PRC Restoration Company, and I'm actually giving you the phone numbers of the representatives.
Okay.
Start there. They're based out of Carson. They have a 24-hour response time. I have another phone number of a 562 338 8564.
564. Thank you, Patty.
No problem. And tell them Patty Widget sent you.
I will. Thank you so much.
No problem. And if you need help with anything, let me know.
Well,
they do everything.
Yeah, I know. This lady wrote me a letter about a month ago. She said, well, she's having a problem with breathing. She noticed some mold around the window. And I told her we can come and take care of it. And then she said, no, I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to put some chlorine. And I said, are you sure? She said, yes. And then we went back, very minimal amount of mold around the window because of condensation. And then I sent my handyman and treated it and repainted it. My question is, should I take any further step? She wrote me everything is resolved. I don't know if she's planning on something later in the future, or I should, what should I do at this point? I even told her I'm willing to change her apartment and she doesn't want to move downstairs. So what should I do? Should I leave it the way it is now that everything is okay? Or should I still call this company to look at it, evaluate it? What do you suggest?
Go look at it in 2 weeks and see what it looks like. Because if you actually have a mold problem and it's mold doesn't die. Surface mold is surface mold. If it's an actual growth problem where you're going to have to be dealing with something, it will come right back.
Okay, after 2 weeks, if I don't see anything,
then you fix the problem. It was probably surface mold, most likely due to improper housekeeping or improper use of ventilation. Both the tenant's fault.
Okay.
Okay, you with me? Are you with me? Yes. Okay, but if you go back in 2 weeks and it's back, then you want to call PRC. You have a problem.
Got it. Thank you, Patty. That's
and
fine.
They may even tell you it's surface mold due to improper use of ventilation or improper housekeeping. Again, both of those fall on the tenant.
Okay, but I have to get something in writing back from them, right?
No.
After
she reported a problem, you fixed the problem, you're done.
No,
if you go back and look and there's still a problem there, then we want to readdress it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it. I got it. Thank you. I understand.
I'm not worried that what you're telling me, you said it was mold around mildew. I like that, Val. Thank you. We don't use the M word. It's like using the F bomb. Okay. The technical term is growth or microbial growth, just so you know. If you use the M word, people start panicking because it's mold. You know, we don't want to talk about it. Lots of big money lawsuits come with mold. So we want to be careful that we stay away from that, and just call it growth. But the chances of it being just surface mildew from improper ventilation, we usually get a condensation issue on a window. And if we don't open up the house and let it air out every once in a while, guess what? We get mold. So it could be something that the tenant caused. We just don't want to go down a rabbit hole if we don't have to.
Okay.
Okay. Mold's no joke, but let's just call it microbial growth. Just call it growth. We don't know if it's mold or not.
Okay.
Okay.
So wait for 2 weeks, check it again. If there's anything called PRC, and then have them give me in writing what their diagnosis or problem.
You also want to know what the cause of the source is. If it's, because then if the cause is improper housekeeping or improper ventilation, you most likely would then be able to charge those expenses to correct it back to the tenant.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
But don't call it mold, call it growth. Because you don't know that it's mold.
Right.
And not all mold is bad. We have penicillin, blue cheese. I mean, we eat mold every day. Just the good kind.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Does anybody else have anything they want to ask me? I got a funny story for you guys. Things you need to watch out for. Uh-oh, here we go. Never say mold, say mildew. Yes, absolutely, Val. I say growth. I have a prospective Canadian tenant having trouble doing a credit report as visa renewal is pending. Offering increased security deposit or cosigner. Can I collect more than 2 months security or collect extra rent? Thanks. On a vacant unit, the maximum the law allows us to collect, state of California, is 2 times the amount of the rent on a vacant unit, or 3 times the amount of the rent as a deposit on a fully furnished unit. We can't take a dime over that. So then if they want to bring a pet and we're asking for additional deposit, we already asked for 2 times, that is the max that we can ask for. Can you take additional rents? Or future rents, let's call it. So a lot of times people say, well, I'll give you 6 months in advance. Yes, Val, that's what I'm getting at. I'm going there. So if somebody says I can move in today, I'll pay the higher deposit and I'll give you 6 months rent in advance. Here's what you need to know. And I mean, need to know. If then you have a violation, okay, let's say, and I'm just picking one out of thin air, that they have, what's the most common thing we get? Unauthorized occupants, okay? They have unauthorized occupants. So you want to serve them a 3-day curable breach of covenant to correct this violation that they now have for the unauthorized occupant or the pet or whatever it is, okay? Whatever, could be anything. They're parking in the wrong spot. You got to serve them a notice. Before you serve that 3-day curable breach of covenant, you must refund any future paid rents to the tenant so that you can serve the notice and it not be invalid as soon as you serve it. See, when you serve somebody a notice for a nuisance and then you accept money, you void the nuisance. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to refund the money and then serve the notice. So you need to know that if you're taking advanced rents, that it can jeopardize what you're doing. Make sense? I hope that clicked with everybody. I hope that makes sense, like total sense to you. Because our first reaction is, yes, take the money. Well, if you're taking the money and you're doing fee management, you don't want to give all that money to the landlord in one shot, because how are you going to do the repairs for the next 6 months? So then you want to adjust your accounting to hold their deposit plus the future rents and only cut one rent check every month so that you can deal with actual operating expense issues. So when you take advanced rents, it has been my experience, and I have done it several times, even through corporate America, it is a pain in the rear. You have to refund anything prepaid if you want to serve a notice that they're in violation of their contract. Otherwise, your notice is void when you serve it because they have future rents paid. It can become a nightmare. It's an accounting nightmare if you're only releasing one check the amount of 1 month's rent every month to the landlord, because then you have to go set your reserves every month. You have to go do the math, figure it out, deduct everything that your expenses were, and go from there. So taking advanced rents, sometimes to seal a deal or to stop the bleeding, can become more troublesome or burdensome than not having those rents in advance. It just depends on the situation. I hope that answers your question regarding advanced payments of rents. Double the rent on the security deposit on a vacant unit, triple the rent on a fully furnished. If they're active military, you can only take 1 month's rent as a deposit as the maximum. And that is only for active duty military. Okay, let me see what else I got. What if a tenant wants to pay 6 months in advance? Thank you, Val. We just talked about that. How should I best verify the number of adult tenants? Do I have the right to ask the additional adults to fill out an application? Thanks for all you do. Thank you, Steve. Better to get a cosigner? Yes. Here's my opinion on a cosigner. Everybody, please pay attention. You got to make sure that the verbiage in your cosigner agreement covers your asset. Okay. What do I mean by that? If they do a cosigner agreement and the cosigner agreement says that that cosigner will stay in place for the term of the lease, guess what? When the lease ends, that cosigner's off the hook. So if that tenant holds over and stays there for years, that cosigner is no longer responsible at the end of the term. Paying attention? So the verbiage that you most likely would like to use says that they are going to be the cosigner for the duration of the tenancy. Got it? Just to help you with a cosigner tip. Val, it happens. It happens. If it says for the term of the lease, then they only have that 12 months. Even if you renew and you don't do the whole cosigner thing agreement, it doesn't carry over. You're done. They're done. They're off the hook. So make sure it's for the duration of the tenancy. When you're dealing with a cosigner, you want them on the hook for as long as they live there. Okay. Okay, let me go back to questions because I saw more come through. Can you charge 2 times the rent plus a deposit, 1 month deposit? Hold on. You can charge as a deposit. Oh, I pushed the wrong button. Hold on. I'm coming back to you guys, I promise. You can charge, if they're active duty military, California state law says that you can only collect 1 full month's rent as a security deposit. If it is a vacant unit and it is unfurnished, California state law says you can collect 2 times the amount of the rent as a security deposit. If it is a fully furnished unit, state of California law says you can charge a maximum of 3 times the amount of the rent as the security deposit. Did I say that clearly? Did everybody understand that? So there's 3 different deposit amounts. If they're active duty military, you can only charge 1 month's rent. A vacant unit, maximum you can charge is 2 months rent. Furnished unit, 3 months rent. So it's 1, 2, and 3 times is how I remember. If backyard is furnished, can you collect more than 2 months security deposit? That's in the yard, not in the house. So we're talking about a bed, a couch, a kitchen table. They don't have to move any furniture inside. Outside, that doesn't count. Is it discrimination to raise the rent on my bad tenant and not on my good tenant? Yes. You must treat everyone the same. So let me give you an example of how that can differ in a multifamily community setting, okay? Let's say that you have a 6-unit apartment complex. I'm gonna keep this real simple. And there's a pool. And 2 of those units have pool views out of the front of their property. And 2 of them have views of the trash dumpster. Okay, you with me? The people with the better view can have higher rent. The people with the not so great view can't have higher rent. They should have lower rent because they don't have the great view. Now, if everybody in the community has the same view, everybody should be getting the same amount of rent increase annually, or it could be considered discriminatory. So if you raise one person's rent, you have to raise everybody's rent that you can. If they're in a term and you can't do that, then they're in a term and you can't do that. You must treat everyone the same. Okay? Trying to totally and completely help you with that one, because that's the way fair housing looks at it, is what you do for one, you must do for all. I'll give you an example. If you have a 6-unit complex and you live in one of the units, no big deal. And you have a disabled tenant, maybe they just got in a car accident or something happened to them and they're disabled and they can't go to the mailbox every day. They're in a wheelchair, you know, whatever, something happened to them. It was a car accident, okay? Pay attention. And you feel bad for them, so you go out to the mailbox for them every day and you get their mail and you take it to them, okay? Because they just got in an accident, they can't move. You have to do that for everybody else in the building or you're discriminating. What you do for one, you must do for all. Okay, that is fair housing. You must treat everybody the same. And if you're a jerk, then be a jerk to everybody. Because if you're a jerk to everybody, then they can testify in court. He's a jerk like that to everybody. So just saying, be consistent is the most important thing I can tell you. And if you have different amenities or different views, that could constitute the different price changes. Also, you may have somebody that's lived there longer versus somebody coming in at market rent. But as long as you can prove that you've been consistent and not discriminatory, you should be fine. I saw more questions, so let me go back. If the rent is raised, can I ask for more deposit to bring it to 2 months? Absolutely. When you guys are increasing rents, you should also be increasing security deposits. And hear me out, okay? If they live there for 20 years and their deposit's $400 each year, even in rent control, are you paying attention? Because this is a good one. Even in LA rent control, you can increase the deposit annually the same way you increase the rent. Okay, it's a 30-day notice to change the terms of tenancy to increase the deposit. If you are in a rent control city, please know that you can only increase the deposit as much as you increase the rent. So if you're 5% plus the CPI, you can only increase the deposit 5% plus the CPI. Make sense? Just to bring it full circle. I'm going back to the chat because I know there's more questions. Do you do same credit check on a cosigner? Absolutely. They're applying just like the other person. I do require in my written criteria on the front of my applications, I have a different, here's how my criteria goes, and look on my website because it's on there. I have examples for you guys. It says the cosigner must make the applicant must make 3 times the rent, have a FICO score of 650 or higher, have no evictions, yada, yada. If a cosigner is approved on this property, then all of the above applies with the following changes. They must make 5 times the amount of the rent monthly and have a FICO score of 750 or higher. Why do I want my cosigner to make 5 times the rent and my tenant to only make 3 times the rent? Because my cosigner now has to support 2 households. Makes sense? We have a triplex. The unit pays, one unit pays 700, the other pays 750, and the last 800. I cannot raise the 700 to 800, right? Val, you most likely could increase rents, and we can talk about how it's a triplex. So you have statewide rent control there. So you can only do 5% plus the CPI. Because I know you don't live in one of the units. So that is statewide rent control. AB 1482 is how, or 1482? No, 1488. AB 1488 statewide rent control initiative. You can only increase rents 5% plus the CPI. Yep, lowest rate's been there the longest. That's usually how it is. How should I best verify the number of adult tenants? Do I have the right to Sorry, I saw you ask this earlier, Stephen, and I forgot about it. It is 1482. Thank you. I thought I was right. I have too many civil codes in my head. Stephen, let's take care of you, sir. How should I best verify the number of adult tenants? Do I have the right to ask additional adults to fill out additional application? Well, I have questions for you. Is this property located in a rent control area? Simply said, what city are you in, sir? Help me help you better. Because if you're in LA City, LARSO, LA rent control, I'm going to give you a different plan of action than I would if you were outside of LA City rent control. And in the county or in San Bernardino or Ventura or wherever you be. I'm letting peeps in. Here comes my money girl. So Hawthorne, no rent control. Okay. Is it a single family residence or do you have multiple units there in Hawthorne? 4 units. So you have statewide rent control. You are affected by AB 1482. And yes, that flew this time. Thank you for correcting me, guys. You're my rocks. So you are affected by the statewide rent control. You can only do a rent increase of 5% plus the CPI annually. And if you want to terminate tenancy without cause after the first year, you have to pay 1 month's rent as relocation fees. So with all of that being said, and I know I probably just said way too much and you're like, wait, slow down. You don't necessarily want to turn around and add them right away. If they're unauthorized occupants, that's a reason you could evict. If they have more people there than you want, it costs you more money on water bills, etc. So wear and tear, I mean, I could go down the long laundry list. So I would go back to your original written documents and start asking questions. These people are coming and going. These people are here all the time. Are they living with you? If you add them to the contract and they don't all fit in the unit, you're creating a problem. Make sense? In other words, you don't want to stick 9 people in a studio apartment just because they have more adults there. Under the COVID pandemic protected period, if they had unauthorized occupants, we couldn't do anything about it till COVID ended. COVID has ended. The protected period ended on October 31st. No, September 31st. I'm a day late and a dollar short today, huh, guys? So starting in the month of October, the unauthorized occupants had to get out. Now we can evict for unauthorized occupants. We couldn't during the protected period. They were protected because of COVID. So now we'll find those restrictions a little bit easier. I think going forward for the non-payment of rent cases from now until March, we're going to see a little bit of challenging just because that law is so new. And let's face it, lawmakers sometimes write things a little bit vaguely or contradicting. So there's going to be some things in there that can be argued. However, for the most part, non-payment of rent from October going forward needs to start coming through the courthouses, you guys. Stay away from that protected period. Our time to attack that is in small claims, not now. I'm going to look at something else and then I'm going to share with you a funny story. I also have a concern about crime. Do I have the right to ask the adult tenant for identification? Yes, you can have them verify who's living in your property. Absolutely. You might want to consider putting up some surveillance cameras. Notice I did not use the word security, neither should you. We don't provide security, it's surveillance, okay? So use the word surveillance cameras. It will tell you a lot about the comings and goings at your property. I mean, let's face it, the camera don't lie. All right, I saw something else come through. I want to share a story with you guys, and I want to see if April has an update for us. So put up surveillance cameras, not security, okay? And you can use the Blink Wi-Fi cameras. They work great. I know. Just Blink, B-L-I-N-K. If you didn't catch that, buy them on Amazon. They hook up to Wi-Fi. They're super simple. Does this include minors? For example, a tenant's boyfriend has a son who she is now calling her stepson. The boyfriend is staying with her on and off lately. Well, you're not going to like this. What does your lease contract say? How many days can a guest visit consecutively before they need to get permission from the landlord? In other words, what's your lease say regarding guests visiting? Because that's what we're talking about. And for those of you that have a guest can stay up to 14 days. Why are you making yourself work really hard for 14 days to find out if they live there and monitor them for 14 days? It's a lot easier to do it in a shorter amount of time. Wink, wink. Does this include minors? For example, a tenant's boyfriend has a son who he's now calling her stepson. The boyfriend is staying with her on and off lately. They're unauthorized occupants at this point, both of them. He leaves after 3 days per our lease and then returns the following week. There's nothing you can do. And as soon as they get married, you can't discriminate. You have to allow him in, because if you're if you tell him he can't live there, you're discriminating against marital status once they become married, if they choose to do so. So be careful with that. On another note, just to give you guys a heads up, what is the shortest amount of time a guest can stay? I say 3 days is reasonable. Think of a 3-day holiday weekend. And the whole thing is, what you really want to do is just open the lines of communication. I mean, I've had tenants come and tell me, hey, my sister's having a baby, so my mom's going to come stay for 5 days because they're going to be in and out of the hospital. And so she's going to come stay with us for 5 days. Is that okay? Yes, no problem. In other words, I'm going to approve most likely what you tell me is what's happening. You know, my mom's coming from another country because we had a baby, and she's going to stay with us for the first 4 months. Sometimes that has to do with culture, and you don't want to discriminate. You got to be careful. So at the least, what I would do is have them sign an agreement that she is a guest and not a tenant in the property and has no rights as the tenant. Okay. Does that make sense? So a guest agreement would be needed. I hope that helps. Okay. Let me share this story with you just so everybody's eyes are open and we all are talking the same thing. I've heard some really heinous stuff going on with that money from the government. And I'm going to be darn honest with you. It's not coming from the landlord side. It's coming from the tenant side. So a lot of these tenants that didn't pay us a dime throughout the pandemic period and are now being evicted because they didn't pay their 25%. The government has sent that 25% to the tenant, not to the landlord. And I know of someone that is in the current midst of evicting for non-payment of the 25%. And the tenant contacted the landlord and said, can we just settle for half of the 25%? I got the money from the government. We'll just settle right now. Wow. So tenants are getting a little bit more gutsy. They're getting the money and then bailing. So we want to make sure we follow through with that, because I'm sure there's some sort of, I got to be careful how I say this, so just hear me. I'm sure there is some sort of ramifications or consequences for the misappropriation of federal funds. And I'll leave my statement at that. I hope that opened your eyeballs so you hear what I'm saying if you might be in that scenario. What we want to do is turn the cheek over to the fact that the misappropriation of federal funds. You hearing me? Okay, so if you find yourself in that situation where the tenant got the 25% and now they're trying to negotiate with you because they just got a butt ton of money and they don't want to give it up, let's be honest, you need to talk to your legal counsel immediately. They may encourage you to contact law enforcement. Okay, was what I'm saying making sense? Okay, I got to be careful. Go get them. We have a clause in our house rules that says extra people would incur $150 per person fee. However, we just want them gone. That's why we don't put an extra person fee in the rental contract. If you just want them gone, remove it. Because that's one of the things they can argue is, well, I could pay the extra fee. They never asked me for it. So it's a double-edged sword. Because if they pay that fee, guess what? You got to keep them, even if they're jerks. From Karen, what is the best way to increase deposit amounts? 4 tenants have been there for 10 years and 1 for 20 years. I know it all can't be done at one time. Units are in Compton, LA County. You can raise the rents you can raise the deposit as much as you raise the rents annually. Okay, so if you have a single family residence, you don't have restrictions, so to speak, you're not affected by the statewide rent control, then what that would do is that would give you, hold on a second. That would allow you to do, if you were governed by a municipality that had a rent control or the statewide, you would be 5% plus the CPI. If you were in a single family residence right now and you really wanted to raise the rent, I would make sure you were aware of price gouging during a state of emergency. Anything over 10% could be 6 months in jail and a $10,000 fine. Okay. Outside of the pandemic and outside of the protected period and the state of emergency, if it's a single family residence without statewide rent control, technically you could increase the rent $500 and you could increase the deposit $500 at the same time. You do it both with a 30-day notice to change the terms of tenancy. But you want to keep those deposits up. Nothing sucks worse when you have somebody that has a $400 security deposit because they've been there forever. So again, you can only increase the deposit as much as you can increase the rent. So if you can only increase the rent 3.3% because of city of LA, then you can only raise the deposit 3%. If you can raise the rent 5% plus the CPI, then that's how much you can raise the deposit. It's 5% additional deposit plus the CPI. You following me? Okay. I hope that all makes sense. I received approximately $3,300 for one tenant, which was 5 months of rent. Now she is asking me for some of that money for her to use now. I told her no, it was illegal. Absolutely. How long can a guest become a tenant legally? It's actually 28 days, I believe. It has to do with innkeeper law. And if they live there 28 days consecutively, they now fall under landlord tenant law and have tenant rights. Also, if they pay you the rent and you accept rent from a guest, that guest just became your tenant. Paying attention? If you accept rent from someone, Let's say boyfriend, we'll go back to that boyfriend and his son. Boyfriend comes in the office and pays the rent. You collect the rent from him. You just made him your tenant. If he says, no, I'm not your tenant. She just told me to come in here and pay the rent. Then he has to fill out a form saying that he's only paying the rent for his girlfriend and he has no interest in the property, nor is he a tenant. So whatever you're doing, get it in writing, okay? Yes, April's absolutely correct. If they connect utilities in their name, they become a tenant. May I increase the deposit next month if last month I increased the rent in April without increasing the deposit? Yes, but you can only increase the deposit by what you're limited to increase the rent by. I hope that made sense. Please tell me if it didn't. I hope that made sense. All right. So we're starting to see a lot of, okay, good. We're starting to see a lot of interesting things come about with the government money. Tenants are receiving the 25%. And for some households and their rent amounts, that's a lot amount of money. I mean, it's over $10,000 and these tenants are getting this 25%. It's like somebody just handed them 10 grand and here you're owed 60 grand and they're taking the money and running. Okay. We also need to talk to our legal counsel about that. There most likely will be repercussions for those actions. They are not going to come quickly. Okay. Nothing the government does happens quickly. Remember that, unless they're arresting you. But what I'm saying is if you think that there's fraud going on, you need to contact the program. You need to notify the worker. You need to let your legal counsel know that they will point you in the right direction. We need to hold these humans, because we're all human. Humans need to be held accountable for their actions, because when all hell breaks loose, it's you and me that are paying for other people's mistakes and ignorance. And I'm sick of paying for somebody else's problem. I don't have a problem paying for my own, because I know I make problems too. I am human. But I don't want to pay for everybody's problems. I don't think that's fair. I'm done with my rant. I won't say anything negative anymore, I promise. In County of LA, are you allowed to increase the rent before April by 3%? I'm going to say this and please pay attention to what I'm telling you, okay? Legally and technically on paper, does it say you can raise the rent? Yeah. Sure. Attorneys are telling you to raise the rent. Sure. There's no case law. So my theory is instead of testing the water, raising the rent, and then finding out we can't do that, having to reverse it, give them a credit back before they file a lawsuit and hang us, okay? Just err on the side of caution, wait till April Fool's Day. Serve the notice to increase the rent then, wait till April and start from there. It's your least amount of exposure, your least amount of liability. And it's the one way I could tell you you're most likely 99.9% not going to be signed up for a lawsuit. Yay. Okay. So could you? Yes. Is there risk involved? Absolutely. There's no case law. And if your tenants paid the rent all the way through the pandemic period, why do you want to rush to them to give them an increase? I know we want more money because right now the grunion are running and we need to fill up our buckets. But the reality is if they paid you through the entire pandemic, that's a good tenant. We want to keep that tenant. We don't want to scare them off. We don't want to piss them off. We want to retain them. And the best way to retain them is to keep that balance right. Okay. So I'll get off my rant about increasing rents. I'm sorry. Hi, Patty, a little bit off topic. Nothing is off topic, okay? Ever, not here. We're all family here. Oh, wait. I got to go way far back. I'm sorry. The family who is housing extra people, we are planning to put up no trespassing signs and serve a 3-day notice. I know it would be easier to just call them and tell them to stop, but I think you advised us to serve and call. It would be hard to prove they live there. Put up a Blink camera. It's kind of like a Ring doorbell, but it's a little bit different. And all it needs is Wi-Fi. Blink, B-L-I-N-K. You can buy them on Amazon. They're fairly inexpensive. They run off a cloud type system, just like the Ring doorbells. And you literally could put them up with sticky tape in your house. Outside, I'd use something a little more oomph. Hi, Patty. A little bit off topic. I've gone through a couple of bad plumbers. Haven't we all, Gabby? Haven't we all? And handyman. How do you find a trustworthy handyman or plumber? Any recommendations? Thank you. Gabby, here's what I could tell you, okay? Workmen are a dime a dozen. Your vendors are a dime a dozen. There's always somebody out there that's hungry. So here's what I do. They've come in, they want to hire me. They want me to hire them. I have them fill out a vendor packet. I have them provide their insurance. I make sure that we're listed as additional insured or interested party on their insurance policy, because I won't even give you information on how to get to a property unless unless I'm covered under your insurance. Okay. That being said, that usually eliminates a lot of the crap. Okay. So now you're dealing with a different level of clientele, a different level of service, if that makes sense. Okay. Little Joe Blow isn't going to carry $1 million liability insurance in case he screws something up. But a handyman that's trying not to be Joe Blow and come out of his shell will spend the money to purchase that insurance, knowing full well they'll get return on their investment valued out of their work. Okay, so having that insurance helps eliminate that guy that you can't get to go do work for you. The other thing that I could tell you is please join your local apartment association. I don't know where you're at. So if you're a member of AGLA, CAA, a lot of them have industry partners on there, which is their vendor community. And they have whole lists of vendors that are on there that can help assist you. I don't have a list in the LA area. I have a list, in the high desert area. So in the event you have any properties in Victorville, Hesperia, Apple Valley, in that I have a whole list that I could help you with, but heating and air, plumbing, handyman, you name it. But as far as other areas, I just don't have that. But your apartment association does. And that's why we need them in our lives. So no way to go back to bring all the low deposits up to current since it's been years for the long tenants, still only 5% plus CPI. Yes. To answer your question, Karen, yes. If you are limited on the amount you can increase the rent, that is only the amount you can increase the deposit. Value said no Wi-Fi. One of your good tenants that's lived there for a while, they probably have Wi-Fi. And oh goodness. And I'm getting lots more questions about Blink. Okay. FYI, Ring has stick-up cams that work like Blink. Yes, they do. But Ring cameras are more expensive than Blink cameras. And I think it has to do with the name brand, but I don't know. Blink is just like a Ring doorbell system. Is it legal? Yes. Don't call it security, call it surveillance. If you're putting it on a triplex or something that has more than one unit, even a duplex, it is completely legal. On a single family residence, don't do it. You also need to be careful about where you put their cameras, where you put the cameras. So you don't want them pointing at everybody's front door or peering into their windows. You know, that's not cool. That's quite creepy and a little disgusting if you ask me, but more that it covers the comings and goings in the common area, not aimed into somebody's bathroom window. If you get what I'm trying to explain to you, we're not trying to invade their privacy. We're trying to survey what's going on the premises. So we don't need to see into their windows. We just need to see common areas and comings and goings, if that makes more sense. $99 for stick-up cams for Ring. Sweet. Like I said, Blink's just another one. They work about the same. I don't know what the price difference is, but very similar. Very, very easy to use, right, Arlene? Very easy to use. That's why I mention them. Okay. City of Pasadena, County of LA. I love you for giving me all this information. Thank you so much. How much is needed if owner wants to sell or has requested tenant or son-in-law to vacate? Oh, you're asking me all kinds of good questions. This is good. If they sell to the son-in-law, will the tax base be the same with a parent-child exemption, or will it be set up to market value, not seeking legal advice and not seeking tax advice? Thank you so much for asking me that. So let's talk in general about what you're asking so that you might ask the proper professionals the right questions, okay? If you're, and they're trying to repeal the new tax law they did for inheritance. I don't know if you guys know that, but I think they're trying to reverse that now or modify that now. So lots of moving pieces. Here's what I could tell you. If you sell the property, no matter who you sell it to, okay, unless you do it through, no matter who you sell it to, the taxes will be reassessed. If you gift the property to a relative or something like that, that's when you don't see the taxes being reassessed. So a sale triggers the taxes to be reassessed. A gift, a trust, an inheritance, but they did something weird with inheritance right now and they're trying to repeal it. So don't quote me to that. Hang tight. We might see some changes come January. Okay. And I'm being completely honest with you. So I wouldn't be in a real hurry to do it. I'm just saying. But yeah, lots of moving pieces there. You need to be careful with them. If the owner wants to sell a property and a tenant is in the property, or that you just want to sell to your son-in-law, because what's confusing me is it says to vacate. Requested the tenant, who is your son-in-law, to vacate. Here's my thing. City of Pasadena, County of LA, don't try to get them to vacate right now. It's so convoluted with the way that the moratoriums and the laws were written. You're better off waiting till April. Okay. In the event that you do want to sell with the tenant in place and they're the tenant in the property, and they leave them there, the buyer can assume the tenancy and assume the lease, or you can give them a 30-day notice to vacate the property once you have an open escrow. But the chances of you being able to go through an eviction on that open escrow is high. So here's my personal opinion, not any professional advice. If you need to get somebody out of a property right now, go for cash for keys. We're going to see a lot more of that in the very near future as we see more and more foreclosures coming on the market every day. Paying attention? So we will see lots more cash for keys offers. When foreclosures happen, that's what banks do. They send their people, their agents out to go schedule cash for keys agreements. So we're going to see a lot more of those. If you need to get somebody out of a house right now, the legal system is extremely convoluted with COVID protections, and there's no case law and everything's heavily litigated. So in order to avoid that, your other option is cash for keys. Okay, we'll make it real simple. I have fake cameras, but I have not installed them yet. No Wi-Fi. Community laundry room, ordered a bunch of residents only, no trespassing signs. That's right. Okay, $100 for stick-up cams from Ring. Okay, my blank cams have been hassle-free mostly. They were easy to install and connect to Wi-Fi. The batteries had lasted for over a year with normal use. Yep, they're bomb. Tenant is son-in-law of owner. Son-in-law currently occupies the property. Okay, well, if son-in-law wants to buy, that's one thing, because that would be a win-win because he's already in there. But they will reassess taxes on the purchase of a property. The only way you could avoid the property tax not being reassessed would be through a gift, inheritance, or otherwise. And with inheritance right now, currently, what I'm understanding is they reassess at market value for inheritance tax. And what they're trying to do is change that so it stays what it was prior to. My tenant dropped the hint of getting paid off to leave. When I asked how much he wanted, he wouldn't say. Okay. It's kind of like a yard sale, if you will. That's the best way I could describe it. You guys are negotiating to a term for an agreement to get out. So it is considered a real estate transaction. So let's talk about first who can do cash for keys. That would be the owner of record, an attorney, a real estate sales agent, or a broker. Anybody else, it becomes a little questionable with them doing cash for keys. Let me say, if you're working under a broker through a multifamily community as a regional manager or on-site manager, you have a broker in your chain of command. That's a real estate transaction. You can still do that. Okay. So don't panic if you're an on-site or something along those lines. There's a broker up the chain from you or an owner up the chain from you. You should be able to do that. Contact your attorney. Okay. So who can do cash for keys is there. It's like a yard sale. So you go to them, and what I do is I'd start out on the lower end of what I'm willing to pay. So what I do is say something along these lines. Hey, I know I need to get this unit back. I'm going to have to ask you to move. You've been a great tenant. I'll give you a good referral anywhere you want to go. But, you know, life is happening to me right now. I need the property back. I want to help you with your relocation expenses. So I want to offer you $5,000 plus your security deposit back if you're gone within 30 days. See what they say. That's how you test the water, right? They might come back and go, oh, no, $5,000. I need 10. Well, you would then come back and say, well, the top of my budget is only 6,500. You see what I mean? So until you come to an agreement on a price, that's where it hits. So I know you didn't want to throw out the first number, but do it. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? They're going to say no. They might even give you a number back. Whew. It's kind of how you start the process. So I'm not telling you to go out there and offer them $10,000 at hello or $20,000 at hello, but I also don't know how much is your monthly rent. Is that enough money to get them to go? Okay. All these 1 month, I wouldn't move for 1 month's rent. Would you? I mean, let's be dead honest right now. If I came to you right now and said, I need you to move out of your house, the one you live in, for what it costs your mortgage for 1 month, would you go? The answer is no. I wouldn't. People offer me $500 to move. I laugh in their face. I can't rent a truck for that. Okay, you got to give them enough money that they're going to go, that it sounds good. Okay. I offered him 1 month's rent. I want him to stay so I can raise the rent every year until he leaves. Yeah, you can do that too. Is it a single family or multifamily, Geraldo? Because if it's single family, you can raise the rent tremendously. Not to be too exaggerating here, but if it's a multifamily, so you're stuck to 5% plus the CPI. 1 month rent isn't enough to get him to go. I'd start around 2 or 3. 3 months rent is ideal. You want to be able to give him first and security deposit to go somewhere else, plus be able to pay for the moving truck. So I usually started about 3 or 4 times the amount of the rent. And think about it this way. If it takes you 6 months to a year to go through the legal process, you're going to lose 6 months to a year of rent anyway. Plus you're going to pay, plus you're going to pay for your legal counsel. So you want to put all those factors into place of what is it going to cost me to get him out of here versus what will he settle for just to go. Okay. Can you install a blink on a single family for surveillance of the road or driveway entry? Yeah, but why would you? And just hear me out. Why would you? Because I wouldn't live in a house where the landlord could spy in my driveway. That's creepy. An apartment, completely understandable, but a single family residence, back to unauthorized occupants. And with single family residences, I'm going to give you guys a tip and a trick that has worked wonders for me for years. So please pay attention. When I go move in a new tenant and I'm there to move them in, one of the things I do after I give them the keys and get the money, because I get the money first, then we do the paperwork. Last thing I do is hand them the keys and say, congratulations. Okay, hang on, Val. Then what I do is I go to the neighboring houses and knock on the door. Hi, I'm the property manager for the house next door. I just wanted to introduce myself as the manager of the property and your new neighbors. This is Jim and Sally, and they'll be moving in here today and just wanted to connect you. And for future reference, if you ever need me for anything, here's my business card. You get what I just did? I just made friends with the neighbors and told them that I'm their boss. And if they screw up, to call me. I need to know about it. So that's how I do that, is I go around and I introduce them to them or knock on the doors if they're home. If they're out in the yard, I go up and talk. Even when I'm there showing the vacant properties, I always go around and give them my business. I'm not trying to get their business. I'm trying to get them to be my eyeballs. If you ever see anything weird going on here, let me know. I'll do what I can to take care of it. I'm here to help you. Okay. What you want them to do is be your eyes, your ears, not your mouth. If something's going on in the neighborhood, that's how you find out about it, right? So go make friends with the neighbors on your single family residences. Okay, Val, I saw something come through. Let me see what you're talking about. I want revenge on this scammer. I'm petty. Well, Geraldo, just shoot him. Yeah, I said that. I'm sorry. Just shoot him. I mean, it's faster. You want revenge on him? I'll tell you when revenge comes, okay? Revenge comes on your disposition of security deposit when you garnish their wages for the next 20 years for the money that they owe you. That's revenge. This isn't a revengeful business. If this guy's a pain in your rear, then get him out of there. Be done with it, you know? Okay, Val, back to unauthorized occupants. I'm thinking it's going to take a long time to prove they live there, plus posting signs, cameras, etc. And now I'm just thinking of posting a 60-day notice to get out. Is that okay? Hold on, Val. When did these people live there? They moved in just a couple months ago, right? If they lived there during the pandemic period, they could still cry COVID if you ask them to get out now. But I'm believing if they were there less than 1 year, you can give them a 30-day notice right now, Val, if this is the one that is in Ventura County. Oh, I had to scroll up. It's in the triplex. They're on a month-to-month. Sorry. So yeah, you can give them a 30-day notice to terminate tenancy. If they don't get out in 30 days, evict them. And yeah, you should be able to do that without a problem. Wow, we ate up a whole hour today. That was great. If anybody has anything else, I will add that. I'd be more than happy to answer that. We will do Wednesdays with Widget next week too. And I got news for you guys. Some things are changing. So we'll have a good time here, but next week we'll have some updates.
Hi, Patty.
Yes.
Hi, this is Karen. You missed I said something to you, but you missed it over there when we were talking about properties that are up for sale and offering cash for keys. You answered some of it. Do you know anything about Kern County and pending in a property for sale? It's a single family. Tenants are in the property. They've been there for over 20 years. So do you know anything about the Kern County laws?
Yep. So 60-day notice. It's a single family residence.
It's a single family residence. They've been over
60-day notice.
Okay, 60-day notice. Now, would you say provide the 60-day notice with escrows open or start it now since it's listed?
Well, if you do just a 60-day notice to get out of the property, then you have time to fix it up and potentially get more money.
We're not, okay. That
If
answers
your
something.
intentions aren't to do that, then you want to list it for sale now, sell it with the tenant in place and let the buyer get them out. It's not a you problem.
Okay, yeah,
Okay,
this
a
is
lot of people that are purchasing right now are investors and they're looking to keep the tenant in place.
yeah. Okay, this is an investment property. It needs a lot of work and we're not gonna do any work on it at all. So it's an investor property, but the rents are super, 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 super low. Very
Okay,
low.
I get it. I get it.
And yeah, and I don't think the investor will allow them to stay in there at
It's on a single, is it a single family or multifamily?
single family. And I've had other family members that's been taking care of the rent and they have not raised the rent for 20 years. So this guy is only paying about $500 a month.
He gotta go, honey. He gotta go.
It's a family. It's a family. Yeah, but
He gotta go. Game over.
I'm thinking that when we do the 60-day, we may have a problem with getting them out of there. So at $500, you know what I mean?
Yep. Yep, he's gotta go.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
But
you guys are telling some pretty funny jokes on here, I gotta say.
hey, they're
tight-
problems. They're issues.
Yeah. All right. Do you have something else?
Well, in a situation, yeah, I'm gonna give them the 60-day notice. Would you suggest doing it
But
now?
why?
Huh?
But why?
Aren't
If
I?
you're not trying to fix up the unit and get him out to fix it up so you can get more money,
Uh-huh.
why are you trying to get him out? Most of the people that are buying right now are investors
Right.
that plan on keeping the tenant there.
Okay, and if they are not, then that's their problem, or what if they?
Bingo.
Okay, I'm just trying
Make
to.
it, take the pressure off of you. You're selling it tenant occupied. If they want to terminate tenancy, great.
Okay, all right.
In other
Yeah.
words, if you're not going to if you don't want to fix it up to attempt to get more return on your investment, leave the tenant in place, list it now.
Yeah, it's listed. It's listed now. Okay.
And
no
then
repairs.
the buyer may tell you I would like the landlord to serve the tenant with a 60-day notice. Okay,
let-
you can do that.
Okay, let the buyer say.
Let the buyer tell you how it's going to go.
Okay, great. All right.
Because let's talk about this out loud. If you spend the time and lose the money, notice you spent time and lost money to get him out.
Mhm.
You're not going to get any more for it. So why are you spending time and money?
Okay, I'll leave the
You
60
get,
day.
you get where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I got you. We just put it up November 1st. It's my mom's property, so
Oh, okay.
yeah, so I'm handling it for them.
What
It's
did
in Kern County. It's in Bakersfield, Kern County.
Okay.
Yeah. So they just want to get rid of it. No repairs, and the place is in really bad shape. So we don't want to put any money into it. Just get rid of it. That's where we are.
Okay. And then somebody put a joke in the chat. I think it's funny. I'm going to read it. You wanted a joke. So what did the battery say to the potato chip?
Oh no.
I'm ever ready if you're Frito-Lay.
Oh Lord.
That is cute and very clean. I agree. April, do we have any money updates? Miss April. She might be
Hi,
on the phone,
Patty.
you guys. Oh, she's not on the phone. She's with us. What do you got?
I just wanted to share an experience that I had with the rent relief program this week. I know I told everybody to link their account to their tenant's account so they can move faster. So what I also found out from the rent relief is the tenant's information, which is what they submitted as far as what they're delinquent, needs to match with your ledger. It doesn't match. It delays the process.
Got it. So don't upsell your rent money. Everything's got to match with what the tenant says they owe you versus what you say they owe you.
Exactly, but they also explained to me that we can include rents all through March if the tenant is not gonna pay or not planning to pay or can't pay. You can request those future months on your ledger. The past, anything that's in arrears has to match with what the tenant put on their application. But the future rents, you can request it. So that way you're not waiting or having to recertify or, you know, going through that whole process again and waiting 3 months to hear back.
Okay, right now, I think everybody is doing this.
Yes.
Because I'm like, wait, what? So you can contact them, recertify, and ask them to pay future rents to March of next year.
Correct. And all they have to do is submit their updated income if it's changed. And if it hasn't changed, they use whatever they submitted the first time around when they first started the application. But the landlord just has to submit an updated ledger. Now, there's another trick that one of the workers told me is, and this is for people that are waiting for payments. You need to go into your account and you need to check your case. So if you have 3 tenants in one case, I want you to click the amount that you submitted. So if you applied in March and you gave them an updated ledger and it says $3,100 and they're already owe you $10,000, you need to call them, have them open up the application, and you need to update that amount and submit an updated ledger. Otherwise, you're only going to get paid $3,100.
Everybody got that? They're asking questions. I see them coming. My tenants got recertified, but it's been a month.
It can take up to 60 days.
What about alerting tenants who are current to research this program? Should I lay it in their lap or start the process for each tenant? The program says it pays future rent without being behind.
That's correct.
Okay, but what about alerting tenants who are current to research this program? Should I lay it in their lap or start the process for each tenant? I don't think you can start the process for the tenant. Can she?
It's an app. It's actually a tenant-based program. So the tenant does have to apply and cooperate. If you want to ask your tenants to apply, but if they haven't had any problems paying, I wouldn't tell them to start now.
Right, but if they're behind in the rent at all, this is
Yeah.
a great way to get some of the bleeding to stop.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, April.
Yeah,
Anybody
no
else
problem.
have questions for April? April is very fluent with this program. She's collected over $100,000 in funds from various programs since the pandemic has started. So
Right.
she's my go-to money guru gal.
Want to hear a funny story? So
I always want to hear funny.
I called the program so they can open up an application for me so I can change the amount. And she goes, why do you want to do that? I said, because the other caseworker I talked to yesterday told me to do that. She said, oh, really? Who did you speak to? And I go, you guys don't release names sometimes. I said, but you can look up the account. So she looked up the account and found out who it was. And then she said, I didn't know I was supposed to open the applications for anybody that calls. So for the landlords, she wasn't aware that she could or should open the applications so we can update the information. She put me on hold, her supervisor. So I actually told her how to do her job.
Hey, April, we got to do what we got to do.
And guess
valid-
what? My
What?
tenant got approved for $11,670 right after.
Okay, if you guys want to ask tips and trips from April, she'll be more than happy to. No, I'm kidding. Yes, some of these agents are incompetent. You got to remember they just designed and developed this program and trained people as they launched it. Okay, this is, yeah, talk about throwing a bucket of water on a forest fire. Rent relief has taken longer than 20 days for a response. Should I start eviction process? Did you log back onto your account and see where you are in the process? log on and see where you are. If they haven't paid and there's no activity going on there, then notify your legal counsel and get that eviction going.
What they have to do, Patty, is call before they start the eviction, is to
Mhm.
call the program and let them know that they haven't received an update in over 20 days. And they are seeking legal action. And what they'll do is they'll go in there because sometimes there are items that are missing from either the landlord or the tenant. And the process that I just explained about updating the ledger and updating the amount that the tenant owes is one of the difficulties that the rent relief program is having. Because if they pay you the $3,100 instead of the $10,000, you actually have to have a hearing for them to approve them to pay the rest of the balance because they missed the paperwork. They're not gonna reach out to you and tell you to update that ledger. If you applied in March and right now we're already in November and your amount has changed, you have to physically do the work. They're not gonna do it for you.
Status is reviewer approved for payment.
Okay, so it's approved for payment. There's really nothing more that you're gonna do because it's already approved. You just have to wait.
So now he's just waiting to get paid and we should not start an eviction, is what you're
No,
telling us. It's been
Because
approved.
he already has
Because
an approval, he won't be
Once
able to
they
get
run
an.
that through the court system, they'll find out you were approved and they'll deny the case anyway. So as nicely as this sounds, but as sucky as it sounds, you gotta hurry up and wait, sir. But add future month's rent in there is what April's telling you. Add in there December's rent, right, April? December,
Yes,
January, February, March.
yes.
Log back in there and add rents all the way to March of next year. They're paying them. All right, you guys, I'm gonna get off of here unless anybody has anything else for me. You guys have a great week. I will see you next week for sure. And I'll have wonderful updates for you by next week. Okay, you guys have a good one as always. And I'll see you next week. Bye. Thank you.